Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I'm your host, Adam Portress, and joining me today, like Paul Rudd, if he's found in a Walmart, you know he's getting paid. Sweet Sean's a Kovacs from the internet.
You haven't heard Ray Parker Jr. until you've heard him live.
And kids also call him Muncher, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and I truly, genuinely want to know if Huey Lewis got a check this month.
I don't know. I think he probably did. A little bit of a check, little bump. We call that the Huey bump.
Yeah. He had the lawsuit with Ray Parker Jr., so I bet he gets a royalty.
That's a whole legal conversation I'm not willing to get into because we're talking about Ghostbusters Afterlife this week. We had a Ghostbusters sequel back in, 2016, and to mixed reviews, I would say. That's probably being generous because both, critics seem to like it, people didn't seem to like it, and we'll see if this one kind of gets us back in that Ghostbusters feeling and everything. When you're the son of the director of Ghostbusters, I think there's probably a decent chance that you're going to do all right.
I picture like a Righteous Brothers song that you've lost that Ghostbusters feeling.
And it's gone. But
Huey Lewis gets a check.
Huey Lewis gets a check every month.
Call me Huey Lewis because that's the news, folks. I should have worked in network news.
I did, and let me tell you, you could make it. Before we get into the show, we want to say a big thank you to the people that support us over at patreon.com/HMP. Doesn't matter what level you support this show at, you get pre-show, post-show, and of course, the Dinger Zone. And this week on the Dinger Zone, we talked all about the expectations that we have for movies and stuff coming out, because there's a lot of Spider-Man talk, and who knows what to expect from that, but you can expect a Dinger Zone from us each and every week, along with your regular scheduled podcast, pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, and of course, this month, like we do every month, we put our viewing lives in your hands, the Patreon supporters. You vote, we watch. It's that easy. This month, here are the things that you have to choose from. We got Hit Monkey, which just came out on Hulu. The live-action Cowboy Bebop, that came out on Netflix. Lock and Key Season 2, also on Netflix. Wheel of Time, we're going to cover 2 episodes of that as well. That's Amazon, right?
Yes.
And then, of course, we wrapping it up. Arcane, that's a League of Legends animated thing. We don't know what it is, but who's to say that we won't cover it? I say we might, just in case you vote for it, over at patreon.com/HMP. We thank you guys for your support. And, of course, the new month is rolling around in not too awful long. And
If I may step in for a second, sir. Look, I know that people want to hear me scream and yell. And there's a big voting contingency out there that's like, man, I love when Sean is totally miserable.
They do say it in the comments and everything of just going, I want to see him squirm.
So I really am going to vote for X. I know that you think it's great if you vote for Wheel of Time because I don't want anything to do with that because it all seems like hokum and hogwash to me. I guarantee you that it will not be funny. My anger towards that movie will not be funny. So if that's the way you want to go with it, okay. But it's just going to be just me not being great on air.
This is
just unless you love it, you never know. You might love it.
It could be the first time that has ever happened to me in my life.
Where you loved it,
where I made up my mind ahead of time and it got changed.
Well, I mean, that has happened, actually. That's happened a few times. And the things that I love the most, actually, are usually how that happens. But with this thing here, what I'm talking about is magics. I hate magic things, as you guys know. I hate them. So anyway, I blame it on my New England upbringing.
Too close to Salem as a child.
That's right, exactly.
You're not tying me into all of this nonsense and hokum. I'm not going to be a part of it in any way, shape, or form. But if you want to be part of the supporting crew and everything that keeps this show going, patreon.com/HMP. And of course, you can always, review us on iTunes. We really appreciate that. And thanks, guys. Let's get into it, boys. Here is the trailer for Ghostbusters Afterlife.
You're a great mom.
I don't know. I'm fine with Trevor, but with Phoebe, She really keeps me on the outside.
That's normal. She's an awkward, nerdy kid.
Maybe a new home can be an opportunity to start fresh. I just wish she'd get into some trouble.
There's still time.
What are you doing here in Somerville anyway?
We're completely broke, and our grandfather left us this creepy old farmhouse in the middle of nowhere.
Your father wasn't much of a homemaker. He could hardly keep the power on.
You're saying he left us nothing?
Well, I wouldn't say nothing.
You went with the station wagon?
It's the only one that had an engine. What is happening here?
Somehow, a town with no fault lines is shaking on a daily basis.
Maybe it's the apocalypse. Egon came out here for a reason.
Are you troubled by strange noises in the middle of the night?
Do you experience feelings of dread in your basement or attic?
Have you or any of your family ever seen a spook, specter, or ghost?
Oh my god. You guys hear that?
Something's coming.
The whole city. It's like The Walking Dead.
Ghostbusters.
We're ready to believe you.
We're closed.
Alrighty, that was the trailer for Ghostbusters Afterlife. You know what time it is.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Bruce, what do we got this week?
Ghostbusters started its comic book life the same way many movie franchises did, as a licensed comic published by Marvel. But for some reason, Marvel only had the rights to publish the comics outside of North America. In North America, if you wanted to buy a Ghostbusters comic in 1988, you had to look for Now Comics. And I don't know if you guys remember Now Comics, but they're the publisher that brought us such comic staples as Mr. T and the T-Force, Fright Night, and that classic Married ... with Children. For some reason, Now Comics went defunct in 2006. I guess copies of Three Ninjas Kickback weren't flying off the shelves like they used to. And yes, that Three Ninjas comic was a real thing published by Now, and it was written by fellow Huntingtonian Clint McElroy, which makes me at the very best, I should say, the third most successful comic book writer in the town of Huntington, West Virginia. I tell you, I just can't find a pond small enough for me to be a big fish. So look out, rural Arkansas. Bruce is going to move into you, and I won't quit sizing down until I can find a town small enough that I am its claim to fame. And when I do, I promise you, it will be quite the depressing place. But back to Ghostbusters. And just to be clear, it was the real Ghostbusters that Now Comics was publishing. But when their time at Now was done, surely they moved on to one of the big comic publishers, right? Well, not exactly. The Ghostbusters comic was next published by 88 Mile Per Hour Studios. Do you want to venture a guess as to what other 80s movie franchise 88 Mile Per Hour comics published? Go ahead and guess, but do it silently because you are wrong. What? Harvey Comics published the Back to the Future comics. My Google search strongly suggests that the only comic 88 Mile Per Hour Studios ever published was Ghostbusters. Why can't I have the confidence of the guy who named his comic book company 88 Mile Per Hour Studios without actually having the license for Back to the Future? Was it wishful thinking? Did he think he'd just give Bob Gale one of his business cards, and once he saw the name of the company, he'd get the license for free? I'm so envious of the can't-fail attitude that led to that fiasco. So I know what you're wondering. How long exactly was Ghostbusters with that total clown show called 88 Mile Per Hour Studios? Well, the answer is 4 4 issues. Then they got out of that place like Owen Wilson fled that intervention in the Royal Tenenbaums. Next stop for the Ghostbusters was IDW, a solid, respectable publisher. And it's a shame that Ghostbusters didn't get with a good house until 2008 because they lost a solid 20-plus years of fun comics I could be trying to collect, but there is absolutely no part of me obsessive enough to ever want to collect a comic published by somebody called 88 Mile Per Hour Studios who doesn't have the rights to Back to the Future. But IDW's great because IDW can make cool stuff happen. What kind of cool stuff? Well, a crossover with the Ninja Turtles happened. And yep, I do have the trade. Thanks for asking, Sean. They also crossed over with the real Ghostbusters. You heard that correctly, folks. In a flash of Two Worlds style story, the real Ghostbusters traveled to a different dimension and met the movie Ghostbusters. Unfortunately, there are no plans to cross over with the two-word Ghostbusters that had the gorilla on the team. But the only reason for that is that 67% of all podcasters I could poll have no interest in a comic book featuring the two-word Ghostbusters featuring the gorilla. And guys, you know that 67% is 2/3, right? So out of the 3 of us, which one do you think would be interested in a Ghostbusters 2 words featuring the gorilla Ghostbuster team crossover? I'll give you a hint. It's not Sweet Chauncey. But that's your comic book connection. 88 Mile Per Hour Studios. Now, speaking of people who don't have the rights to Back to the Future, Adam, do you have a list?
Boy, I wish I had those rights. Might be raking it in, boy. Well, if that comic connection was enough for you, let me sell everyone on this sequel that's been in the works since the Reagan administration, because this movie has everything. It's got nostalgia and droves, but let's be a little bit more specific. This movie is Ghostbusters by way of Amblin. Don't believe me? Move into a new small town. Troubles with fathers, troubles with money, sibling relationships, coming-of-age movie with sci-fi angle, demons, little gremlins, legacy. Eric Spielberg's cinematography is very Dean Cundy. Rob Simonson's score is very John Williams. There's no swearing, no nudity. We have implied horizontal mambo, but never even see the kids holding hands. How is this movie PG-13 and Dan Aykroyd is getting a humdinger from a ghost in the first movie, and that gets a PG? I guess we'll never really know. We got respectful cameos, a plucky kid named Podcast that straddles the line between cute and annoying and with the greatest of ease. We got Smart Kids Disease solves all the problems, and I'm here for it. Believable teen crushes, J. Jonah Jameson and the Shocker, and the best Paul Gadd that he's ever done. And Ecto 1 action, small town destruction, munching, shooting, driving, screaming, hugging, laughing, and crying. This movie has everything.
True.
If I can go backwards for a second, because I didn't want to interrupt you, Bruce. I was a diehard Now Comics fan with their Terminator series. Because they had the Terminator license first.
Yes.
And the stuff that they were doing was so interesting. And I understand that basically they didn't pay Alex Ross for his covers, and so they went under. And that's basically the reason why they went under. I understand that. But my goodness, the stories were so interesting, so much more interesting than anything they have done since Terminator 2. They had a Russian submarine team who was staying alive because they were in a submarine the entire time. And just such a great story arc, just so fun. It was just such a neat, like they had neat ideas with their Terminator series. But anyway, if we can get to Ghostbusters, Sean, shut up. Okay.
Did Alex Ross do any of those Married with Children covers?
I'm gonna guess no.
Oh man,
you're going to find this hard to believe. I didn't read Married with Children comic books. What? I know. It's weird.
I like the show, but I want to get into the lore.
The world building is what it's all about.
Oh man, you weren't a Married with Children fan until you really get the nooks and crannies of Steve.
The lost Steve years.
Let's be general before we get into spoilers for this, because I'm really interested, because we've never really talked about this before. Everybody loves the first Ghostbusters because if you don't like the first Ghostbusters movie, that's on you. You know what I mean? So, but where are you guys as far as everything else is concerned with Ghostbusters?
I liked the real Ghostbusters cartoon a little bit as a kid, Slime and the real Ghostbusters, but I have never felt the nostalgic need to revisit it. I never watched the Extreme Ghostbusters, which I think was a follow-up animated series. I never watched that at all.
What about Ghostbusters 2?
Yeah, I watched it.
Yeah, but I mean, are you a fan of it?
Second best Ghostbuster.
This much is true.
Not, I'm not showing my hand yet with this movie. I'm just saying prior to this, the second best Ghostbuster. I think we discussed this like last week that I thought Ghostbusters 2 was the second best Ghostbuster.
But yeah, no,
I talking about Home Alone, Alone Again, or whatever it's called.
Oh, right.
I liked Ghostbusters 2 was out in 1989, I believe, and so that was like right at the prime time for me. Like 1989, you got this and Batman. That's just called my life right there at this point. And I'd obviously seen the first Ghostbusters on VHS a whole bunch and really loved the cartoon. I had some toys. My cousins had way more of the toys and stuff. So it was, it's always kind of been with me. I really like that show. The episode of The Real Ghostbusters with the Boogeyman literally gave me nightmares as a child.
That is the best episode of that show.
It's
hands
so
down.
good.
Everyone agrees on that. As a matter of fact, that's probably because I was thinking about that this week. Is that for me? It goes first Ghostbusters movie, then no Ghostbusters, like nothing else. Then 3 is the Ghostbusters episode, or the Boogeyman episode of the Real Ghostbusters. That is the best episode of that show.
Just such a weird design on that thing and stuff. It's just for a kid, just so scary. But yeah, I've always kind of liked the Ghostbusters, and there's a part of me that does have a very soft spot for Ghostbusters 2 just because of when I saw it and everything. I think the Bobby Brown song is fantastic. I mean, even of itself, is a really great song.
I probably remember the song better than the movie because it's one of those movies you see once, and you're good. So I probably have to watch it again to give a whole lot of in-depth analysis of it. But I remember the song very clearly because the first time I heard it, I was at a swimming pool at a campground, and that song was playing. The Too Hot to Handle, Too Cold to Hold. They call them Ghostbusters, and they're in control.
So
like that.
Good. Yeah, that's exactly it, actually. If you weren't going to do it, I was going to, so I'm glad one of us did.
but also, I was probably old enough that I should have known better by 1989, but I was still of that mindset that, like, the most recent thing is always awesome. Even though like I probably in 1989 walked out of the theater with my friends and said, oh my goodness, that was even better than the first one. It's like I was also the kind of guy who couldn't wait to go out and buy some new Coke. I was like, man, this new Coke is really going to be where it's at.
You all tried this Crystal Pepsi?
Pepsi. Man, once again, I would take a Crystal Pepsi over a regular Pepsi any day back then.
Because it's cooler.
So the other thing, because they're after I'd seen Ghostbusters Afterlife, what I kept seeing online was there were a bunch of people talking about the Ghostbusters video game.
Yes.
And how basically that is Ghostbusters 3. That, you have Ghostbusters 1, which is, a lightning in a bottle classic. Then you have the second one, which in my opinion is straight garbage and trash. And yes, there are a few funny scenes in it, but that is a money grab if I've ever seen it before. Then you have 2016. In 2016, to keep the politics out of it, I will say I wanted that movie to be great. I really did. I like all of the women in that movie. That movie is wholly unfunny, and they completely missed the mark because they're basically trying to redo Ghostbusters without getting the two pivotal things about the movie right, which is that one, those dudes were constantly tired. Like they're always tired in that movie because they're just completely overworked and they're blue collar. And two is that they're trying to start their own business and just how difficult that is. Those are the two hallmarks of that movie that 2016 does not get right. And so, and on top of that, there's not a quiet moment in that movie. Everyone's constantly screaming and constantly yelling, and it's nonstop. And it's just, I'm sorry, it's just not funny. I want it to be, and it just isn't.
I'll say that it's got an effective sophomoric humor. Like my kids loved it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my kids loved it at the time. And I mean, it's 2016, 5 years ago. So my oldest was 10 to 11 years old at that point. But they loved it. In fact, they loved it so much they bought the novelization of the 2016 Ghostbusters and wanted their mother and I to take turns reading chapters of it to them for bedtime.
I had not put that together that kids might love that movie. I had never put that together.
Yeah. And, they would say things like the power of Patty compels you when they would shove each other and stuff like that. So they liked
cute.
it. Yeah. They liked Leslie Jones in that movie a lot. I think she was probably their favorite.
So, well, yeah, I mean, she is the funniest one in that movie. But anyway, so I watched the movie cut scene movie of the Ghostbusters video game today, and it's fine. They have everyone's real voice, which totally adds to it.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, they're basically going through the same paces of the first movie. It's the Ghostbusters problem, where if you're going to continue doing this, you have to stay in the same very limited parameters for something to be as great as the original was. And there's nothing there, which is why, to get to Ghostbusters Afterlife and to talk generally about it for a second here, they rightfully went a totally different way with it. Like this movie isn't anything like the original movie. As a matter of fact, this didn't even have to be, you didn't have to put Ghostbusters on this, and it would have just worked as its own movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to a degree, I mean, you change a few names. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I mean, the end of the movie, of course, but I mean,
wow, for a movie not called Ghostbusters, that's an interesting way to end it with those people showing up.
I can't believe that those people all showed up for the end and it's not a Ghostbuster. Yeah. So but I mean, for the most part, this movie works on its own as its own movie, and that, to me, that was a smart move. Although, Adam, I mean, I thought the same thing as I was watching it. Is that, wow, this is basically, hey, what if Steven Spielberg made Ghostbusters?
Yeah. And I was thinking about some of what I think makes this work, where Ghostbusters 2, Ghostbusters 2016, where they maybe didn't work as well, is like, first off, making kids the center of it really works. And I have to call that a little bit of the It and Stranger Things effect, because it's been a while since kids were like the leads in a non-kids movie. But then I thought it's like a movie people who are Paul Rudd's age, and they probably like physically look a little bit more like their Dan Aykroyd's age, used to be Finn Wolfhard's age when they were in love with this movie. So it's like, you get to identify this whole broad spectrum if you're a Gen Xer when you're watching this.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that it does well, is gives us this stance that I think almost anyone can place themselves in one, if not multiple characters from this, if not in their current life, at some point in their life. They have, been, especially if you're older, you've been one of these characters at some point or another. And that's what I like about it, is that it kind of lets this world be and doesn't feel like it's technically beholden to the other movie. It is its own thing.
We got to hit the pause button. Okay. And I want to see which characters do you, Sean, think that Adam was in this movie?
Podcasts.
What do you think, Adam? You agree with that?
I could see a bit of that for sure.
Yeah, that would have been my guess too. I didn't know if you identify with that. Who do you think Sean would be there, Adam? I'm having a little more trouble identifying who Sean would be in this movie.
Oh, he's not Muncher. We know that much.
I'll say Sean's the sheriff. Nobody expects to be identified as the sheriff. I don't know. Because I don't see Sean as a Finn Wolfhard,
No. Well, here's the thing. I will say this, though. The one thing that Finn Wolfhard did that made me go, that would make me think a little bit of Sweet Chauncey, is he sees this girl, and about 4 seconds later, he's like, I got to get out of the car. I got to go chase this girl now.
Go lie about my age and get a new career.
I'm just like, this
girl I just saw.
I'm like, my good. Yeah.
Maybe you are the Finn Wolfhard then.
He felt
driving without a license. I don't know.
He felt so quick for this girl, and she's a cute, nice girl and everything. But boy, oh boy, he was like 3 seconds. He's just like, I got to get out of this car and I got to go get this chick. Hold on.
So are we all just going to go ahead and label me Phoebe?
Oh, yeah, listen, the smart little know-it-all kid that, excuse me, I need to go over here and tell the teacher why he's a moron.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I related to Phoebe a lot. I thought that McKenna Grace, though, I think she carried this movie on her back.
It's not even close, man.
Her performance is so wonderful. Who would think, like, if you've seen like IMDb headshot of this girl, or you saw her, this young lady, when she was playing a young Carol Danvers in Captain Marvel,
right?
Like, she has absolutely transformed herself to be a young version of Egon Spengler here so wonderfully.
She is marvelous in this movie. And the moment that I fell in love with her, because I absolutely fell in love with this character, is the triangle joke. And she gives the very slow wink.
The wink was it. Yes.
That is literally
I didn't realize how impactful that was, but now that you pointed out, yes, indeed.
That is literally the moment that I fell in love with this character, and I was all in from that point forward. And spoilers from here on out with the movie. I think that's safe to say, right? Like, yes. We can do that now. Like, she literally is. If she's not in this movie fails. Yeah. And because you don't need I almost called him Wolf Fanhard.
Yes, same. Potato.
But you don't need him in this movie. It's not to besmirch him as an actor. He's pretty good in the role, quite honestly. He is a good actor. It's just that you don't need that character in this movie. It's almost like he's in a different movie as you're watching,
Yeah.
The scenes he's in, you don't need to progress the plot except for that one moment where he's in the well. But
I feel like he's there because you have to have at least one Stranger Things kid in any supernatural kid thing.
Well, why can't you have the kid with the physical defect in this movie?
May have been busy doing that prank show for Netflix and wasn't available.
There you go. But like Paul Rudd, Paul Rudd's another actor here, where you need somebody with literally all the charm in the world.
Man, that guy got it.
To keep this movie afloat, because if you have anyone else in that role, I'm going to hate him.
I also love it that Paul Rudd is the guy who can be, People Magazine's handsomest man alive or whatever.
Sexiest.
But also quite believable as the analog to Rick Moranis in this movie. I mean, that he's doing something right out there. I like that.
Well, he is the Scrappy Doo of this movie, because they got him doing two different roles. They have him being the Bill Murray because he's a charm machine, and they have him being the befuddled guy like Rick Moranis. And so you got the same character with both people, and you got both people in one character in this movie.
He's smart yet silly.
Yes. And he, he's one of those guys that, I did not want to like him in this movie. I'm going to be totally honest with you. When I first started watching this thing, I wasn't lying in the weeds for it, but it was something where I was like, I do not need to see one of these people who have been in every single comedy movie that we've seen for the last 20 years be in yet another comedy, and he is just so unbelievably charming that I can't hate him. The thing about this movie, and I fully believe this, is that this is going to be one of those things where even the people who hate this movie currently are going to look back, 10, 15, 20 years from now and go, oh, you know what? That is a great movie. The only difference is that they aren't going to say to themselves, oh, I was wrong. They're going to say, oh, I was one of the people who always
knew about it. I knew about
it.
Yeah.
And this is this is that movie where it's going to probably get overlooked first out of the gate. But later on, you're going to be like, oh, man, that movie's pretty good. It's kind of like Predators in that way. Like the movie Predators is a pretty good movie. It's flawed as hell, but so is Ghostbusters Afterlife. I mean, there's a lot wrong with it.
And that was Robert Rodriguez's Predators, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that movie is fun and interesting and keeps you in it the entire time as you're watching it, just like this movie. And just like this movie, it takes forever to get to it. I mean, that is one of the things about this movie is that the first half hour of this movie is molasses.
Was Predators the one with Topher Grace?
It sure is. To get back to Topher.
More Topher in our lives.
Talk about a charm machine.
Man, well, let's just call this Toph-vember. It's the Topher Grace November. Toph-vember.
Well, I think we just figured out what November is going to be from this point forward. Thank you, Bruce Leslie. Toph-vember it is.
Carrie Coon, man. I love The Leftovers. I have a feeling you probably really like The Leftovers too, because I know you're a fan of Lindelof.
I am. And yes, I do like that show. I don't love that show, but I do like it.
And this is a different version of a woman who is absolutely so stressed with life, it's just barely worth breathing.
Yes.
And she's great at this. I enjoyed her as this mom.
She's very good and totally believable as a single mom.
And I was going to say, it's nice to have someone who looks the age that this person would be, that has these kids this age and everything. They didn't go like, let's get somebody who's 10 years younger just on account of that, it's Hollywood,
Also,
this is what we do. It's like, no, she's the appropriate age for these kids' mom.
And I've seen Carrie Coon and other stuff, and I do think that they really mommed her up a little bit.
Yeah,
too.
she looks a little weathered and everything like that, and that's clearly a design, and it's great.
Because like I'm trying to say something. I don't want it to sound rude towards Carrie Coon because she's a beautiful lady, but they mommed it up here a little bit for her, right? Yeah. And they really got this small town dynamic because I am from a sparsely populated rural mining town, and I was a weird little kid that liked science and stuff. So I'm seeing a lot of my self-reflection in this. So it's going to make me like it for nostalgic reasons and for personal reasons, like beyond the quality of the story, probably. But there is this thing in town where there are a lot of relationships where one person is a lot more attractive than the other because there's not that many single people in town of that age. And, the way that they're presented here, they try a little bit maybe to ugly up Paul Rudd with the beard and the longer shaggy hair. But it is that thing like in a small town, Paul Rudd is dating the character, the Carrie Coon character. But if this is taking place in New York, well, Paul Rudd's probably not dating that character. So I just kind of like that small town dynamic with those two and their chemistry too.
And you're right. I mean, I grew up in a small town, and this feels exactly like that. It feels exactly like that place where it's just downtown looks exactly like like it does in this one, but actually somewhat smaller in my town even than
I
what
know
was
your
even
town.
Here.
You're right. Your hometown is smaller.
So, but it is. There's a lot of that feeling. The kids going out and just kind of sitting out in the middle of the field somewhere doing some BS or whatever. Like that. Like that's just what kids did. And like while this is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's present day and everything, it still feels like this could be somewhere in the 90s and everything. And that's
it
great.
Absolutely does feel like that.
It doesn't feel like we're super connected to a lot of technology, and like it's kind of refreshing.
I love the no bars, the no bars on the phone. So that takes how much harder it is sometimes to write a good story when the solution to everything is always in your pocket. But you go to this town where you don't have a cell signal, which there's some places I have gone occasionally on vacation in West Virginia that don't have cell towers around. And it's kind of nice to step back for a few days to the 90s where you don't have the answer to every question and nonstop distraction in your pocket.
And they do mention it like twice, and it's not like they're not hitting it hard, but it's not so throwaway that you forget about it. It's just there as part of the element of that story. And that's the reason why we just don't continue to pick up our cell phones. Perfect.
Yeah, Jason Reitman is a damn fine director. I mean, I don't like everything he's done, but when he nails it, man.
Just for the sake of my ignorance, what other movies has Jason Reitman directed? Did he do
Juno?
Okay, that's what I thought.
He did that. He did like Up in the Air. There's just like he does a whole lot of movies that are much lower scale and not no stakes, not a lot of special effects in the majority of his movies and everything. But following up on the mantle of his dad and stuff, when his name was announced, I thought he was going to be a fantastic choice, not only because of the relationship, but let's just take that out of the equation altogether and say it doesn't exist. Jason Reitman makes very interesting character-driven films. So even if you might not like his stuff is drawn by characters, and I think that is ultimately what this story really gains, is that we're seeing it from these characters' standpoints, and we can relate with all of them. It makes this setting in the town that they did, the way that they've done everything, makes it so you can jump back and forth with, who you empathize and sympathize with throughout this entire cast.
He also, Jason Reitman loves working with Charlize. And so it would not surprise me in any way if down the line somewhere Charlize is in, if this movie goes anywhere, Charlize in the next Ghostbusters.
Yeah, that's another one. Young adult and all this. Like he just like
Boy,
his stuff.
Tully.
Tully. Yeah, Tully's another one that's just like I think people forgot about that one because it came in and left so fast. It was just like, what is this bizarre movie we're watching? I like it, but it's so weird. But I'm glad that he did this, and it's the most dynamic looking film that he's ever made.
Yes.
One thing I want to say about this as an advantage over the 2016 version of a Ghostbusters movie is this one really is made to be self-contained. Like this does not end with the, like the whole thing. Well, we really want this to be a new franchise. Like this really feels like a complete story. And in fact, it'd be kind of hard to pick up on it, I think.
Well, it ends on a.
Did you go to the after credits there, big boy?
Yeah.
I made it to the part where the very end. Yes. When Winston is back in New York.
Yeah. So I feel like that at least leaves the door open for it, which I like. I'm like, leave it open, and we don't necessarily have to go through it, but it can always be something that goes, oh, what a day that would have been if we would have gone to something else, and like the movie that's in our mind of whatever the sequel to this thing would be will be better than it probably ever could be, so let's not make it.
And with the difficulty of working with children at Hollywood speed, is made even worse when a pandemic pushed this back however many months, like from summer 2020 to winter 2021. I mean, Phoebe, who knows, man? Phoebe might be 7 feet tall by now. Finn Wolfhard, he's already
he's 32 at this point.
Freakish. Yeah, he's already looking freakish in Stranger Things season 3. So that's kind of like what I mean. Like there would be a whole lot of obstacles to carrying this story. Now they might do something else where I mean, we need to go ahead and just talk about who shows up in this movie, right?
Yeah.
So, they actually managed to get the surviving original Ghostbusters back together in their Ghostbusters costume, busting a ghost. And they even had some kind of specter of Egon. I think somebody was credited with that. I don't think they just straight up. I think they did like the Donald Pleasance thing here.
Well, it's probably
talking about, Adam.
It may just be a body. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked at that, but my guess is it was probably just that's the body stand-in, and then they put the head over top.
It's definitely a deep fake face. I can tell you that.
So they could revisit something with the original Ghostbusters, maybe trying to take some Gen Z people under their wing and train them, and that might be kind of funny, but I don't think they can actually make a sequel to this movie.
It won't be that. It'll just be Winston. And they are showing you their hand that Winston's the one with all the money. Winston's the one with all the ideas. Winston's the one who wants to keep going. Winston's the one who, when they fire up their proton packs, he says, "Oh, I love that sound."
I didn't pick up on that, but you're right. But also from like IP rights and production, they don't really do this without Dan Aykroyd.
No, and he'll be on in a producer role or as the crazy guy at his occult business. I mean, he'll still be in this thing forever.
Yeah, and I figure Bill Murray's fine if they don't call him.
And I think that I think that's the way to go. Quite honestly, Bill Murray doesn't want to do it. Bill Murray is the reason why we don't have 5 different Ghostbusters movies, because he didn't want to do any of them. Like
I mean, there was one specific reason, and I don't think this movie would have happened if Harold Ramis was still alive.
Well, you're right. You're right, but I think that let's go backwards for a second, because I wasn't able to talk about this. At the end of this movie, the containment unit fails. Like that is the cliffhanger to the end of this movie. Mm-hmm. The red light blinking is the containment unit has failed. And so they're setting it up that they're going to make more. Then at the top of this movie, you get the badge of the original Ghostbusters logo. And then after that, you get Ghostbuster Core. I
thought Ghostbuster Core was a production company, but maybe that's what this franchise
That's
is
what I
gonna
thought.
be.
That's what I thought, Bruce. I was just like, is that like an umbrella that they put for this new production company for something?
Like, I thought it might be a Dan Aykroyd vanity production company or something. But I like what you're saying. That could be the logo for this world moving forward.
That's an interesting thought, yeah.
And let me tell you, for my friends who work in the movie business, tell me that there are a million LLCs that movies work under.
Oh yeah.
They don't put that badge in the front of the movie. This is a different thing.
They will if they want Bruce in their picture. Oh, I'm sorry.
So I think that if this movie is even slightly successful, there is going to be a move forward towards more of this. Now, I think prestige TV show is more likely than another movie, quite honestly.
Oh, that would work great too.
Right.
And Ernie Hudson would be cool, a perfect fit for something like that.
Right. And I think that's the way a lot of these things should go. I think that if Star Wars has shown us anything, it's that, look, if you're going to be telling these stories, it's far better to take your time and put it on a prestige format than to try to shoehorn it in an hour and 45-minute movie.
And I don't know if it's feasible or not, but I could see like just do a little time jump and Phoebe's in high school and she's still the central character. Because I just like you, Sean, I fell in love with that character. And if there's a way to keep her involved, that's kind of cool.
I think that Phoebe is going to be the hard get coming out of this, to be quite honest with you. I mean, maybe they signed her on for more, maybe.
Probably not. I just get a feeling like they're, especially after 2016, they were just seeing if it flies or not.
Sure. But she already has 60 credits to her resume before this movie came out. Like she's
never as a lead before, right?
No, but she was born into the business. This is a star-making turn for her. And the simple fact of the matter is she became known as, the not perfectly looking girl in this movie. And so for her to come out to the public as basically, the nerdy girl and legitimately look like a nerdy girl when she's actually, she's the pretty girl in school, really.
Yeah.
Like that is the flip. She is going to be a rock star in about 2 years. I mean, it's just going to happen.
Kind of following that Sophie Lillis, Millie Bobby Brown trajectory, you think?
Yes.
Oh yeah, for sure. And Ernie Hudson looks great still, doesn't he?
Let's not keep talking about Ernie Hudson because there's a lot going on at the end of this episode. But
okay, let's talk some more. Why don't you take the driver's seat a little bit, Sean?
Okay, sure. So what did you guys think? First of all, I'll tell you my 2 bits before you tell me. So, when the Ghostbusters come back, when the original Ghostbusters show up, why is that not a triumphant moment and a triumphant shot? Like, why are they like kind of halfway off screen? Oh, it's because of Harold Ramis. That's why. Oh, I just got that. Okay. Oh, never mind. I just figured it out.
Because you didn't center them up right.
Yeah, because when the camera pans up and they're off center, my first thought was, well, that's not a very heroic entrance at all.
Yeah.
Like, what are you like? Because they're kind of leaning on stuff also. Like they're not like standing heroically or anything.
I don't know if it's the DP's call or if it's Reitman's call because, I don't know these things, but there were a couple of shots that had interesting framing. Like there's one where Podcast is dragging something off frame and he's like lower right-hand corner on an extreme long shot where most of the screen is just like empty space and horizon. And I thought that was kind of an interesting shot. And by interesting, I mean, not one that I would expect, not necessarily like, wow, I loved it. But there were a couple times I noticed the framing seemed a little unconventional. And I didn't know if that's maybe just the artistic flair of the auteur making the film.
I'm sorry. I just completely blew myself away by like, oh, that's why. It's because Harold Ramis was there.
Yeah. Plus I think there's some kind of like they don't want to give it like the Avengers coming out of the portals at the end of Endgame. I think they really want it like your my minimally competent uncle in his heyday, who's now a little over the hill, has shown up and he's going to help because he cares about you more than like these are the superheroes coming in to save the day. I think they wanted a little bit of that. Like everybody thought they were crazy, and maybe they are crazy, but just because you're crazy doesn't mean you're wrong, kind of thing.
Well, what I think of when I think of heroic entrances done correctly, everything is wrong about the last Indiana Jones movie, but the one thing that they get right is his entrance into that movie is about as heroic as it gets.
Oh, not in the fourth one. In the first three, 100%. All of those are good, but in the fourth, where he's coming out of the trunk of the car, that's asinine.
Oh, is that his introduction?
That's his introduction. That's what, and that came across.
I just didn't know what heroic was, so I was going to shut up for a minute.
Hey, that came across on account of Lucas. Believe it or not, that was a Lucas note. Was just going, hey, maybe the first time that we see him, he comes out of a trunk and looks kind of beat up and stuff, and it's kind of crap. And like that was his entrance into that one. It's terrible. Yeah,
so what am I thinking of? What am I thinking of when he steps out of the shadows in that cave? Which Indiana Jones is that?
I think that's 2 because 3
it really sounds Temple of Doom to me.
Yeah, because 3 is the River Phoenix to him in the rain.
Yeah, I've seen 3 recently. I saw 3 on Father's Day.
I'm fairly certain that's number 2.
Okay.
Temple of Doom.
Okay. All right, then I got it wrong. I stand corrected.
That's all right. I was just
like that was heroic entrance. Yeah, it's a great.
Oh my God! It to me, it's the best. That and the Captain America entrance in Infinity War, are just 2 of the best entrances ever.
Yeah. The one in Infinity War is good.
Stepping out of the shadows. Good God Almighty, what a man!
I would kind of call this entrance with our 3 Ghostbusters founders when they show up. It's almost like you get on the elevator at a hotel with somebody who's famous, and at first you don't recognize them because they're just in their street clothes. They're like looking at their phone, and then after you go up 1 or 2 floors, you give the double take, and you go, "Oh wow, I know who that is."
I go, "You're John Delancey." Oh, we're getting off on the same floor. Hello,
hey John Delancey.
That's from a true story.
So that's the first question I had. What do you guys think is not so great about this movie? Because it is flawed.
I kind of I thought that the execution looked wonderful. I like the way Gozer looked, but I kind of don't know that we needed the exact same Gozer again.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have minded if they went more like Cthulhu mythos or something, or I don't know, like Gozer was the Silver Surfer, and now we're going to see Galactus. They hit so many of the same beats that it's like the Force Awakens. Do we really need our 3rd Death Star?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I think that's like the only thing is, and I got I was very confused by that. I was just like, what, who, I was trying to see if I knew the person who was Gozer, and I'm just like, do I know this actor? I can't tell.
You sure do. She's the director of Booksmart.
That's her, Mrs. Booksmart.
Olivia Wilde.
Can I tell you something though? Part of me also thought like I was just like, is this that guy from SNL, the Asian guy from SNL who played the Titanic iceberg? It kind of looked like that's. I was just like, did they make him up like a? I don't know what's going on here. So I'm sitting there trying to eyeball it, going like, this is weird. What is this? Who is it? That's not that guy, is it?
And I don't understand why I didn't like this part, because this is the kind of thing that I usually like a lot. But when Carrie Coon says there is no mom, there's only Zool, for some reason, I could have done without that or having it handled a different way or whatever. I don't know why. It was just weird, because normally I'm a sucker for these kind of callbacks.
I agree.
I was okay with that.
There's a lot of those. The little stuff got me from time to time in this movie, where I was like, like how easily they started the Ecto, and that isn't the Ecto 1. That's the Ecto 2.
Even though the plate said Ecto 1.
It did, but it is the Ecto 2, because it's got the side hatch thing where the gun, there's a turret on the side. That was in the second one, not the first one. So whatever. But the thing that I was really really bummed by was all of the nods to the first movie. There's so many nods to the first movie.
To me, those felt like it was actually it was more of the reference point, because so much of the movie itself, that's what seems to be a lot of people's gripe, is that it was almost too nostalgic in a lot of ways. But for me, all of that, the majority of it, not all of it, because some of the points that we said, those felt like echoes to me of Ghostbusters, and not necessarily like this ham-fisted, like it's not member berries. You know what I mean?
I think if this were a movie that was struggling a little bit to stand up on its own, I would have really liked those moments. But this movie did well enough that it didn't need those moments, and that almost took me out of it. Like I was almost watching this incredible new thing that I really liked, and then those moments would kind of remind me, oh wait, it's a Ghostbuster. There's also just strange for me, because I normally like that stuff, and I wasn't as into it here.
There's also someone who is just like, it is a giant hole that they're missing from this movie. I understand that Rick Moranis is hard to get. I do get that, but you got to do whatever you can to get Rick Moranis.
Part of me was really holding out hope there at the end.
I was hoping to.
Please, baby, please, just give me like one Rick Moranis thing real fast.
If at the end, just suddenly, we've got a Zoom meeting. Who's on this call? Why, it's Rick Moranis, because they could maybe get him on a Zoom call.
He is so the glue of the first Ghostbusters. He has a lot of work to do in that movie, and he is so good at it. And just countless times since his performance in that have people tried to do the same thing he did unsuccessfully. And so to have him not in the movie is such a bummer for me. And yes, they gave him too much to do in the second Ghostbusters, but in that first Ghostbusters movie, he is one of one for performances. I mean, he's so good in it.
Yeah, but you know what? He's drawn his line in the sand, and you just deal with it, I guess.
Well, he's doing the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids remake.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, come on. Who could say no to a project like that?
When the Brinks truck backs up, eventually you.
And that's what I'm talking about. Back to Brinks truck.
Something tells me there's more money in the Ghostbusters franchise than in the Honey, I Cruelly Shrunk Our Children franchise.
I'm waiting for the movie where they get all of the dads from 90s movies, like in a prison.
Ooh,
that'd be great.
And he would be in there. The dad from Rugrats would be in there. like all of these dads, like, oh, what are you in for? Oh, child endangerment. Yeah, me too.
You get the Home Alone dad serving a double life sentence.
Exactly.
Now, what did you guys think of the mini Stay Puff scene over in the Walmart?
I kind of loved it.
I loved it too. I thought it was really great.
I will tell you, I did not like it, but Schmoopsy Poo saw this movie with me, and she, number one, loves this movie dearly. She loves Afterlife. She thinks it's great, and she especially loves that scene. She thinks it's so funny.
It's again, that's that Amblin Gremlins quality. It's coming in there, and it's straight Gremlins, and I love it.
And I also love it that he actually went into Walmart and it looked like a Walmart, and they didn't make it Skippy
it didn't
Mart
just look like a Walmart. It was indeed 110%
once again,
Walmart.
Growing up in a rural, sparsely populated mining town, you have exactly one store these days.
That's
when you
where
go back,
you go.
And that is
You go to
Walmart.
Walmart. That's absolutely correct.
I did turn to her and I went, "That's perfect." I mean, that is where he would go. He would go to a Walmart.
Guys, before we get to it, I got a little something here. What do you think?
Bale's here.
This email comes to us from Maria.
Oh.
Maria writes in, "Hey guys, so this was the first movie myself and my upstate New York family, Dan and Donovan, and I saw in the theater since the pandemic started. I thought it was very well done. However, it was very predictable. Although at the end, I was one of the movie patrons in buckets of tears. My boy asked, 'Why are you crying?' And my response, nostalgia." I was wondering, what did you guys think? Did you guys think it was predictable? The only thing that I didn't see coming is when Zool possessed Trevor's wannabe girlfriend. I forgot her name. Last question. Do you think this one opens up the possibility of another follow-up movie? Thanks, you guys rock as always. Peace and love and hugs. That's Maria from upstate New York.
Hey, Maria. Well, I think that I answered what I think. I think they are setting it up for a sequel. I think they're setting up for multiple sequels if they wish. But I think that they would be well served to turn it into a TV show than a movie.
I think they should treat it like Sony treats Spider-Man villains. Give everybody's grandchild a standalone movie.
I mean, as far as like the predictability factor and everything, like I think it hit like a lot of, if you look from the giant storytelling book Bible of how you do all of these things, you can point to all of the, you can point to the stands and tell you exactly where it's going to go every single time. However, when you do that really well, that sort of thing doesn't matter. It's like you can have that. Pixar is the one who does it the most. Pixar follows the story structure like nobody else's business, and they do it every single time to you. And you know what? It works pretty much every single time, as long as it's not like The Good Dinosaur or something.
And I think I'm pretty good at like predicting stuff. And there was stuff I didn't predict here. Maybe it was just because I wasn't like, I didn't approach it as a puzzle to be solved, but I was kind of like pleasantly surprised when we found out that Egon had set up this thing that had been holding off the apocalypse for who knows how long in that mine. Like that was a twist I didn't quite see coming.
That was the part that got me as well. I mean, I knew that Egon was going to show up at the end, but I didn't realize that this whole thing was a setup to try to stop the end of the world.
Stop the end of the world. It makes him like this, this ne'er-do-well father turn out to be someone who is like literally just trying to save not only his own kid, but the entire world at the exact same time.
Yeah.
And it's called, no, I was watching you the entire time and stuff. I had something to do that was, critical to the world staying together, but I never actually, stopped thinking about you.
Yeah, it's pretty great. And I will say that that the lady was crying during the movie.
No, it was nonstop for me. So, anywho,
was it really? Did you cry in the movie?
Oh my gosh, I cried like a baby during this entire thing. Doesn't sound like me at all. I know. Like I'm usually so reserved and put together. That
guys, he cried in Fast and Furious.
Stoic, 7. I would say. Hey, listen, man. When that bridge breaks, you know what family really means.
For the builder.
Well, before we get to our final review here, we do have to ask ourselves one very important question: is how this sequel can be related back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone.
Why, thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh.
Hello, Mr. Stallone. It's Sweet Shawnzy again. This week's Stallone Connection has been working in front of the camera since 1976. In fact, he's had 40 credits on his resume before he starred in the first Ghostbusters. His second job was working with Rudy Ray Moore. He was on Different Strokes and Webster. He was in a movie that takes itself so seriously that it's hilarious, that movie being The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, and the movie that suffers from terminal 90s-itis, The Crow. He has been in everything. And of course, I'm talking about Ernie Hudson, who looks great for 76 years old. But when I think of an incredibly tired middle-aged man, my mind immediately goes to Ernie Hudson. Ernie Hudson appears to not be aging, which makes me believe that he might be a vampire or at least dabbling in witchcraft. This, of course, is my roundabout way of saying I believe Ernie Hudson is a witch. Maybe he prefers to be called a warlock or a wizard, but I was born and raised in New England where we call everyone a witch. You know how to sync your phone to your car on the first try? You're a witch. You never had your orders screwed up by Grubhub or DoorDash? Witch. You can do that thing where you put fingers in your mouth and you can whistle real loud? You're definitely a witch. I mean, sure, we might have killed a couple of people who refused to repent for their witchy ways, and maybe we threatened to burn some peeps for refusing to wear a buckle hat, or dear Lord, they dared to dance. But this is how I was raised, and a witch is a witch is a witch. Now, Mr. Stallone, you worked with Ernie Hudson on a television show, Las Vegas, which I know I bring up constantly, But you try finding a connection to this movie. I tried. I tried. It's Las Vegas. And also, if I'm being honest, I wanted to talk about Ernie Hudson a bit because that dude is awesome. Also, I have a great idea for a movie, and I'd like you to greenlight it straight away. You've got juice in Hollywood. You can make stuff happen. Here's my pitch. There's a serial killer on the loose, and he's copying the murders of a serial killer that was around in the 80s. The police are flummoxed, so they call in the 2 retired cops who brought down that 80s serial killer way back when. Those 2 cops are played by Ernie Hudson and Keith David, who now hate each other because they like the same lady and they haven't learned to let it go. It's Grumpy Old Men meets Lethal Weapon. Name of the movie, Back in Black. The theme song is a remixed version of the Johnny Cash song, Man in Black. I know everybody wants to go with the AC/DC song, but you're wrong. That song sucks. Serial killer ends up being their buddy from oh so long ago, who is played by Stephen Tobolowsky. Who says no?
I'm in.
Tag for the movie. They're already too old for this gunshot noise.
Yeah, perfect.
And there it is, Mr. Stallone. This week's Stallone connection is one of my favorite actors of all time, Ernie Hudson. I'll try to do better next week. Your pal, Sweet Shawnzy from the internet.
And because I know he just fast forwards to this part of the episode every time, Mr. Stallone, I saw the Rocky IV cut that he did. He did a recut, took out all of the robot stuff, and actually added 3 minutes to Rocky IV, but made it seem even faster and quicker. And I'd suggest anybody watch that one if you're a Stallone fan. He's one-upped himself, for heaven's sake.
The robot's out.
The robot is gone. Paulie's robot is gone, and boy, oh boy, is the movie better for it.
Nope.
It's
I want to see the robot cut where it tells us what the robot was up to while Rocky was off training.
Is there an all robot cut?
Yes. It's called Real Still.
That's the Paulie cut. All righty.
Let's just him eating chicken fingers for 2 hours.
Cursing at his sister and doing stuff. It's just like, why are you so mad at this woman? She's done nothing but help your slovenly butt for 20 years, and you're just like, what are you doing, you big old dummy? Throwing stuff at her. What a jerk that guy. Here at Hero Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system. Check it out over our subreddit, reddit.com/r/Hero Movie Podcast. Bruce, where does Ghostbusters Afterlife fall on the Robin rating system for you?
I had a pretty low bar. What I was wanting was a second best Ghostbuster. That's all I was asking for, and we got it. I think we got something that cleared the bar that was set by Ghostbusters 2. So we definitely got a second best Ghostbuster. I absolutely love this movie. A whole lot of it's probably more like nostalgia and just like personal experience and stuff than it is entirely driven by the narrative, but it's well executed. I can't say enough how much I love McKenna Grace's performance in this. I mean, it is just wonderful. And I think I'm going to give this Tim Drake.
Sean, what do you got?
It's a Tim Drake for me as well. I don't know. My list forever has been Ghostbusters, then no Ghostbusters at all, and then the episode of Real Ghostbusters where they get the boogeyman. But I think now I gotta say I think that this is number 2. I think this is the second best Ghostbusters we've ever gotten. It's not funny, but it's not supposed to be funny. So for me, I'm going, this is the second best Ghostbuster. This is Tim Drake.
Yeah, I enjoyed this movie a whole bunch. I think I maybe saw the teaser trailer and that was it. I really didn't want to know anything else going in. Glad that I did that. It flew right by for me. I saw it in IMAX. I absolutely just, I loved it. It was just so darn good. It gave me exactly what I wanted that I didn't know that I actually needed. And I feel like I've only seen it the one time, so I feel like I may have to hold this back, and maybe we can do something on the end of the year where I've seen it at least 1 or 2 more times so I can make a firmer statement of this. This may be my favorite Ghostbusters. I enjoyed it. It hit all the right buttons and did everything it needs to. Dick Grayson for me. This is going all the way to the top.
Nice.
So yeah, my guess is if you're a Ghostbusters fan, there's decent odds that you'll like this unless you are like completely against nostalgia. And if that's what you are, why are you watching this? It seems like a weird person that would have that kind of
I agree.
both those wants. It's like I want to see more of the things that I like, but don't show me all of the things because I won't like that. All right, nerds. But for me, this just really did it. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Here Movie Podcast. Again, we'll talk about what we're doing next week in just a second. But Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet in the meantime?
I'm still having a lot of fun on YouTube, so come over to youtube.com/c/Bruce Leslie. Getting, inching my way closer to 5,000 subscribers there. So come check it out. And I'll have my first tier list video up this Wednesday. So it'll be a tier list about Attack on Titan characters, but my personal relationship with them and my opinions on their hair will come into play. So check that out.
Well, I certainly could see that. At the same time, too, just remember, if you ever run low on videos, tier lists, I don't care if it's even about things that you're talking about. If you just go sandwich list, let's do a tier list on that. I promise you, people click on that crap. They're just like, I want to see where he
Summer sausages.
Yeah, summer sausage ranking list. People will do anything. They don't care. Sean, now, if people just can't get enough of the three of us, what else could they do? Is there something that's around the horizon?
Yes, there is. We're going to be doing a Hawkeye 30 questions, which is going to start 2 weeks.
No,
next week. Next week
comes out Wednesday. Is there your first episode? So we're getting on top of it. Next week is going to be a big recording week for us.
Wow. Okay then.
So
next week,
heads up,
starts Hawkeye 30 questions, and we're gonna have 30 questions for that TV show on the Plus. So look out for that.
Yeah, indeed. Look out for things falling. Who knows? So again, just remember patreon.com/HMP. Here are the movies that you're going to be able to vote on. Hit Monkey, Cowboy Bebop, the live action version, Lock and Key Season 2, Wheel of Time, Arcane, that's a League of Legends thing. All of those will be up on the Patreon page, so please vote for that. We'll probably close voting around Wednesday, and we'll get everything rocking and rolling here, everybody. That is it. Join us next week when we're talking our Patreon selection for Sweet Sean's and Kovacs from the Internet. Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Porters. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.
If I was you and you were me, you want to be winning. If you want something